Hi, welcome to The Cultural Barrier by Changing Suits. My name's Belle.
And my name's Taj.
On this week's episode, we'll be talking about cancel culture. Cancel culture. Taj, why are we talking about cancel culture? You always do that. You always act like you don't know why we're
I
talking
do
about.
know. I'm like, oh my God, this is a bit prickly. So
Okay, so shall I say it?
I was about to say it. So we put out a podcast, and basically on our Instagram, we were promoting our podcast, and there's snippets that I've taken out of conversations. In context, it makes sense, but getting snippets out of a conversation is a different story. So this particular one,
Plus, it's marketing. I mean, you're going to be getting out certain bits, so it's like, ooh, why are they saying that? Let's go and see the podcast. Okay, sorry.
So basically, it was saying our feelings about how we approach certain things in our life, and we got a bit of backlash from this. More specifically, you got a bit of backlash.
It's not a we situation.
No, if you're going to fall, let the person fall by themselves. Joke.
Yeah.
So basically, then we had a whole discussion about how we deal with things and basically how we express our emotions. And sometimes it's not the normal way of doing it. For example, if, I don't know, I was going to be morbid and say someone dies, you don't laugh about it. But I remember at a couple of funerals, we've talked about the good times, and we've had a laugh about the good things have happened in that person's life. Now, if we were to snippet out the conversation, it would be like, funeral, we laugh at it. Now, in context, that is not what it is. What we're saying is the way we deal with it is think about the fun times we had with the person, rather than more like, you should mourn the person, that's part of the process, but it's not all doom and gloom, because it's a way to deal with things, and we do that quite a lot with a lot of the topics that we've gone through in our lives, because we have had such a hard life, if we actually think about it, as in emotionally hard life, and things that we've been through and the challenges that we've been through. What do you think?
Okay, so
even that you're smiling at, you like, yeah, hard life, believe me, I know, because I've had to deal with it.
I mean, in regards to that post, it was one where we speak about divorce, right? And then I had said something like, divorce before divorce was fashionable, right? Now that's going to get snippeted out because it's for marketing, and then I'll get some more people saying, like, what are you talking about, fashionable? I mean, I think someone did in the comments say it was a flippant comment, but it did make me think. In that clip, I spoke about the fact that it was a traumatic experience. And the reason it kind of pissed me off that some of the comments were a bit rude. I mean, one person literally said it was rubbish. Then I said, okay, cool, listen to the full one and you'll get it. And then she turned her profile off, right? And then carried on. And it's like, hold on. I get it. You know, keyboard warriors, I get it. But it's your opinion. I'm not having a go at you for your opinion. You thought it was rubbish. Fair enough. But hear the whole thing before you then judge. And I felt like that was a thing that we tend to do. A lot of people tend to do. You get that little bit. You haven't heard the bit where I've said it was a traumatic experience.
And in that clip, you said like the whole thing was said, but that emotional bit wasn't picked up. It was about that old fashionable thing. So it's the other part you want to hear, isn't it?
It's about what they want to hear. But the other part is, I'm talking about my lived experience. How I then deal with my lived experience is no one else's business. And how I portray the way I feel about something is no one else's business either. That clip is to raise, like most of the podcast, is to raise debate, right? And if we're that quick in saying, you're right, people, look, there's people that I don't agree with, that's fine. But if we cut off a conversation, right, and we don't want to debate it, isn't that what causes stigma within the community? And topics become taboo because then you've just put your opinion and nothing else matters, right? I don't have a problem with talking about it. And the whole cancel culture, I've spoken to my friends about it. And it was from that comment of, oh, what's your opinion? Because, I like hearing people's opinions. Not too much. If I don't agree, then it's like, I'll shut them down, Jake. But the whole thing was, and then it came to certain topics that in society, that I'm not even going to mention some of the topics that I don't agree with, because it would be politically incorrect for me to do it. And because socially, you're not allowed to give your opinions. And that I've got an issue with. People giving their opinions, it's their opinions. What they then do with that opinion, if I was then to go and attack someone because I didn't agree with something that they did or said, or then it's like, hold on, that's where the mistake is. But debating it shouldn't be a problem. That was my thought behind it. Like, what is up with the cancel culture? Why are we trying to shut down debate?
So maybe, again, it's about what's put out in the public arena. It should be all nice and furry. But life isn't like that. We need to be realistic, and that there are, and especially now, we keep going back to politics, but just generally the whole environment of what's going on in the world, it is a prickly world. And we need to be open to have those conversations. We can't just shut it down. And to be honest, it builds up skills as well in ourselves, listening, and then, like you said, debating as well. And then if you don't agree, then try not persuading, but letting the other person see the other side of the conversation. And maybe they will come down to the way that you are thinking, and then maybe change
down to up to. No, joking.
perception. Then their perception might change if you have that conversation with them. But if you're going to just shut it down and say, that's rubbish, this, that, and the other, and also you're going to turn your profile off, there's obviously a reason why you're turning your profile off, to make those comments, because you should be open to say whatever you want. Why are you turning
off? To be fair, I appreciated some of the comments. I've just said, someone said it was a flippant comment. I was like, actually, you're right. It was a flippant comment. And I wasn't against any of those people that have given their opinion. Fair enough. And it made me think. But it also made me think of, do we have a right to... Look, I agree. A lot of the comments that I say are quite flippant. I'm going to use the word because I think it does. But it does make you think, if you're going through something, or someone's going through something, that we all have to act the same for it to be acceptable that you have got an opinion.
Yeah.
And, for example, death. If someone is standing there laughing, we've spoken about how Granddad went to a funeral and he said, oh, he cracked a joke at the funeral, and we found it funny. We still find it funny. And obviously you have to be tactful of where you are. I mean, doing it in the middle of a funeral in front of people that, whatever, I get it, right? There's tact, but it's still up to someone else. If they want to cry at a funeral, they can cry. If they don't want to cry, that's fine. If you, that kind of thing, like, who are we to judge someone on the way they react to, having an opinion? I just don't get it. I don't get it.
As long as it doesn't hurt anyone.
Agreed.
Then actually that could be argued as well. Because anything that we say, one person could be like, yeah, go for it. Another person might be hurt. So do you just not say anything at all then? That's the question.
But then this is the point. So we've actually had this conversation with, I'm going to go back to service providers, because we did a bit of a feedback session. And the whole thing was engaging with the South Asian community, because that's what we do. And it was the whole thing in the NHS. Are we asking people their ethnicity? And someone, a lot of respect for her for saying this, but she said that I don't tend to ask because I don't want to be seen as being racist. And that then flips the other question. Well, if you're not asking the question, that's not in the data, in which case it's not being, things aren't being resolved. And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
If we're too scared of having an opinion or sharing our opinions, then the issue is not being resolved. And that's what creates the stigma. The whole point of this podcast is trying to talk about these things, right?
It's the intention, I would say, that is really important. What we've said to a lot of people that work with us that aren't from the communities, please be open with us. And we obviously have formed a relationship with those people, those services that we're saying be open with us, because we know that it's not coming from a bad place. Mm-hmm. Where there are situations when you're in a meeting and you're like, an odd, you know what I'm talking about, but an odd comment is thrown in and you're like, actually, that's a bit racist or something like that. Because I did have a meeting and someone did say to me, well, in this country, we don't do it like that. And I don't, in that particular circumstance, I think that person didn't realize that they were doing it just because they're around people, she even admitted, racist people. So maybe that's her language. But then
Hold on. What meeting are you talking about? Because that's the NHS like
this
when we were on
this
the other end of it.
a different meeting. I'm not going to name names. I never name
No, that's fine. You're not thinking about the same experience where I was, right?
Yeah, no,
We've had that.
Yeah, this is a different meeting.
And that was racist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this person admitted that they had grown up in a racist environment. So this is obviously the language that they were using. But then I pointed out it's very important us to use the right language.
The right language. Yeah, but this is the whole thing. If that's what you've grown up around and that is the language, then you don't know any different. But then it's the relationship building. We always go back to it's that relationship building if it's done out of spite. I'm going to add something else in here, and this will show when we recorded this podcast. So the BAFTAs just happened yesterday, so you're going to know what day we're recording and what day this is released, right? And there was an incident. Now, I haven't seen the incident, but basically, have you seen this?
Mm-mm.
No? Okay. So it's been on the news, and I've seen it in a few places already, where basically the people about to give out the award were two black actors, and someone with Tourette's syndrome had made a racial slur.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to see, and at this point, we don't know how it's going to now pan out for BAFTA. Now, I just read something, and I don't know if it's true because it was in one of those magazines that maybe it won't be as reputable, the Daily Mail stories that you tend to read, right? But basically, the actors that were on the stage said, it's the intent. Like you said, what was the intent? Was the intent to be racist? However, look, the person has got Tourette's, so the intent, they can't help it. But with the fact that that word is in circulation, are you around more people that are saying it? In which case, that's why it came out. I don't know the history of.
Well, that's a hard one.
That is a hard one. That's why when I read it, I was like, whoa, that is tough. Because which way do you go? Like, you get it from both sides. So what do you do with it? But it's the intent. Like, I don't know.
But if that was someone that didn't have Tourette's and wasn't going through it and said it, then that's a different story. Then it's cut and dry. It was racist. I don't know what the comment is. I'm going to go and Google it in a bit.
Yeah.
But then if there's a medical condition, then I don't know. Because
what do you do with that?
Medically, I don't know medically, like,
yeah,
there might not be enough even research behind that to know.
But then there was something about football. I don't know who this football is. I was just watching the news as I was having lunch, by the way. That's why I'm like, something else come up. But basically, a player in one of the football teams, I don't know which player and I don't know which football team, which is not helpful. He may have missed a goal. I obviously wasn't listening too much into the story, but when he got back, he missed the goal or something happened. Just like, do you remember in the World Cup?
Yeah, that was horrible. Yeah.
And then you had the racist remarks about the fact that they missed it. I mean, them playing in the teams isn't a problem. When they get a goal, it's perfect. You're part of this team. And all of a sudden you miss a goal. You didn't do it intentionally because you wouldn't do that, I'm assuming. And all of a sudden, the stuff that's coming out on the internet is wrong. And that player then said, how is it that, again, we're in a time where there's not, people aren't reprimanded essentially for having opinions like that.
It feels like times haven't changed, to be honest, and we're going backwards rather than forwards.
Yeah.
And I think, people, for example, the fact that we even pointed out that comment that was made on our social media, someone else would have just ignored it and carried on. I think there's oversensitive people like we are being that actually would get cancelled in that situation. And then there's those people that just push ahead and ignore what's happened, and they just go steaming ahead and they just carry on the line of whatever they're doing and say horrible stuff and continue with it, and nothing's happened about it.
But then it does go back to if you deal with things in a certain way, right? What is the right way to deal with it? That's the biggest thing I thought. Like, I'm talking about my experience, not someone else's. So I've got every right to say whatever I want, right? And it was, so do you see where I'm like, so do you not then give your opinion on things? Or you say the standard thing. We all know what's right and wrong. We know what the society, well, I suppose common sense isn't so common anymore. So I guess that's a bit here, there and everywhere. So going back to the whole topic, cancel culture. do you think people should be allowed to say what they want without getting cancelled?
It depends, again, the intent of where it's coming from. If it's, oh God, again, I've come circled again. If it's hurting someone, if it's getting them kicked out of the country.
But hold on, you said it yourself. If someone is hurt by your comment, like that example, like the social media thing, if someone's hurt by it, then are you wrong in saying it?
No, I don't think you're wrong in saying. I think again, it should be an open conversation about what was said rather than beating that person with a stick. I think it's a difficult one because that is a blanket question, whereas we're just asking on that particular post.
No, I'm not talking. No, I'm not talking. That was an example, but it makes you think of, as we're doing the podcast and we're giving our lived experiences. If I was to say something, because I do tend to brush things off. Like there's certain things that we won't be talking about on the podcast because they're too hard to talk about. But I'm not going to sit on the podcast and cry about it either.
Oh, that's another thing. Let's just talk about the crying thing as well. I see lately it's happening again where people will put on social media, will film themselves crying. I find that really weird.
About what though? What they're crying about?
I don't know, just something that's happened in their life. I think there's nothing wrong with crying and there's nothing wrong with being emotional, but I find it weird that you would record yourself being emotional.
See, that's the kind of clip that's going to get cut out. And you're talking about people being emotional. I'm sitting here laughing. Like, I don't know.
I don't get it.
So, you know that there was a star in Grey's Anatomy and then he passed away.
Yeah.
He passed away. So there was someone, is it Catherine Hegel? I don't know. She put a comment out and I saw it this morning. And she said something like, and I think her comment was really nice and I totally get it, right? She said something like, I don't tend to put, when I'm going through the grieving process, I don't tend to put messages out, but I will put this poem out, right? And she had a nice poem on there. And this is the thing. It's like, how much do you put on social media? Like, you know, when people say, oh, I miss you to someone that had died, it's like, well, hopefully they got internet and they're on Instagram.
Well, I find it weird when someone says happy birthday and it's to their husband. And it's like, why don't you just go up to him and say happy birthday?
Well, it's to tell everyone else that it's his birthday, so make sure you say happy birthday. No?
Why can't you just say, why don't you say happy birthday to my husband?
Well, that would be the alternative, actually saying. So I was listening to something, and they said, you know, when social media, Facebook being the main one at that point, came out, the whole thing was moving away from the whole current media to become your own celebrity, right? It was about being different. So if you didn't agree with, I don't know, something socially, it was a place for you to openly give your opinions, right? Yeah. That was what social media was about at that point. But the culture has shifted, or you could do different looks. Like you didn't agree with, it was about fashion. If you wanted to sort of have a different type of fashion than the times, that would be a good way to promote yourself, right? And then it's sort of come around, apparently, on social media where the algorithms work to a certain look that people are going to be looking at, like the Kim Kardashians, in which case it's come full circle around from going to, social media being there, from being different to then conforming to what society wants you to.
Yeah, because you'd get more money out of it and you'd get more people that are logging into it. Why would you go, you might do it, you might have someone that's different and it attracts people because they want to be different, then that would be a good algorithm. But then if it's everyone's in with the Kardashians, big butt, big boobs, big lips kind of thing, then obviously that is the kind of thing that you want showing.
Yeah. But then it does make you think social media is then obviously, which we know is playing into the game, then political sort of thoughts. Okay, the reason I'm thinking this, you know how this is going to go into economy and how governments then want to make cashless, don't use cards, or transactions are done online. If the government doesn't agree with your opinion in that case, they can hold your cash and then you got nothing. So then it comes back to the whole thing of cancel culture, controlling the sort of narrative. You don't agree with my opinion, in which case, well, you're not allowed your cash, so you got nothing. And that is where we are at the moment. There are cases like that.
Oh,
So,
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
so where are our, what is freedom, I suppose? Is it
Hiding your money underneath the mattress.
you're going to get robbed when this goes out.
I don't do that, by the way.
That's all right. Don't come to my house. But you get what I mean. So the whole thing of, are we going to be open to debate? Are we listening to it? I was listening to something the other day about, I can't say the word, authoritarianism.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't say it. You can say it.
Well, I can't
Authoritarian.
now because you're making me authoritarian.
Right? And this book was talking about how what is totalitarian. I can't say the word, but basically, democracy versus authoritarianism,
Yeah.
and what true democracy is. Even if it looks like a democracy, it doesn't mean that it is a democracy. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's where this comes into. If everyone, I know this sounds like a big, it goes from a social media post, and then I was listening to all this stuff, and now it's starting to link, is how free are we as a society?
We're
That's
not.
the whole thing.
We're not, to be honest, are we? Because everything is judged. Everything judged in our community. For example, you don't take certain steps because you don't want to be judged, and then other things. Well, it depends how far you take it. If you let that judgment stop you.
Okay, and this was the other part of this. I know, going back to the comment, I know, keeps the touching base with it, but that was the reason for this podcast. Now I'm 40. I'm sure everyone knows I'm 40 now, right? When I saw those comments, I was like, do I answer as myself, me, or do I answer professionally because it's under the organization? Guess what I did? I went professional, baby. I went professional.
And so you should.
And so I should, which was the right thing to do, right? But had I not done it on a professional platform, the reply would have been very different.
But that's what happens when you work for an organization. It has to be.
You have to conform.
Yeah, because you have to do it from what the organization, like their view on it. And you have to be very neutral on that. You can't have a solid, hard opinion on this and a hard opinion on that, because it just doesn't work, because an organization is a separate entity.
Legal and morally illegal. Yeah, and this is the thing, and that's something I learned a few years ago when a comment that I put out on social media was taken the wrong way, and I couldn't say anything because I shouldn't have put that comment out. It wasn't a wrong comment, but I saw how actually you need to be careful under what guise, GUISE, you're putting it out on. Very interesting stuff. So, I mean, I don't think there's too much to say. I think now I'm 40, I did care less.
Actually,
I did.
Like the end of the world, 40. Well, not the start of the world.
No, but what I'm saying is I like analysing things, which is what we're doing. And is there something that I need to change? And my opinion, I did take one of them. I'll use the word flippant. But am I wrong in what I said? I know there's people who won't agree with me, but I don't think so. It was my opinion. It was my lived experience. It's not up to someone else to tell me how I should take my experience. So I'm not going to change my opinion on that, but I take it on board. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a short one, but yeah. We do think about what people say is the point. And on that point, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.